Good day and good morning, and welcome to this channel, Haklean. Here with me with Bishop, Archbishop Ledesma. He's Emeritus, he's retired bishop, and he is resides in Cagayan de Oro. So I'm going to talk with him about his story of vocation and his story of faith and his story of life, um, in order to inspire us as a young Jesuits and as a people of God, and help us to know more about him, his life, especially will help us to know more God, how God communicates Himself to us in our everyday life. So today here with me, Archbishop Antonio Ledesma Jesuita. He's a prominent Filipino Jesuit, a priest, educator, and advocate for peace and interfaith dialogue. He was born on March
That's correct.
1943 in Iloilo City, Philippines. Ledesma completed his primary, secondary, and tertiary education at Ateneo de Manila
That's correct.
University and graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts in degree. He entered the Society of Jesus on May 30, 1963, and was ordained a priest on April 16, 1973 at Jaro Cathedral in Iloilo City. Furthering his education, he earned a master's degree in political science from the University of the Philippines and a PhD in development studies from University of Wisconsin-Madison.
That's correct.
This is a brief um, introduction about his life and his education and his process of vocation until he became a Jesuit. So once again, Father, welcome and good morning to
Good
this.
morning. Yes, Ilo. Yeah.
Um, Father, this is my first questions. I used to ask people, um, when did you feel the vocation, God called upon you, and you respond to it? And now you're a Jesuit for long decades already, and as a bishop, and now as an emeritus. So when did you feel the vocation?
During my college years at the Ateneo de Manila, I was also active in some organizations like the Sodality of Our Lady and Student Catholic Action. And I had them outside of the campus activities also with the wider network of SCA, Student Catholic Action, working with Columban fathers at that time in the Manila area. And that also opened my eyes to the needs of many people in different colleges and universities, and also people in maybe underprivileged situations. And I think my association also with the Jesuit fathers at the Ateneo University was also one way of maybe encouraging me to see whether I had a vocation to the priesthood. So finally, when I graduated in college, 1963, I applied for the Society of Jesus.
Um, in the Society of Jesus, as a priest, and as a Jesuit for how many years already? Long decades already. Um, how do you find yourself um, in the Society of Jesus? And as a bishops, are you happy with this life till this moment?
My first assignment was really also after my graduate studies at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I was assigned to teach at Xavier University in Cagayan de Oro, and my subjects were mostly on rural sociology and agrarian reform, and also religious studies. And I also became the Dean of the College of Agriculture and Xavier University, which is a bit unusual for Jesuit schools to have a College of Agriculture. But there again, it opened me to a lot of rural poverty situations in Mindanao and other parts of the country. And eventually I became the director of the Southeast Asia Rural Social Leadership Institute, or in short, CIRSULIN, which was started by Father William Masterson in Xavier University. And it was a training program for about 3 to 6 months for participants from different countries of Asia. This was supported by Miserior, so it was really also a scholarship for the participants. But again, it gave me widespread knowledge about situations in neighboring Asian and even African countries, about the need for rural poverty problems. So I think that also was one way to keep me busy. And eventually, to my surprise, I was asked to be coadjutor bishop and eventually bishop of the prelature of Ipil, which had been a Jesuit mission district in the southwestern part of Mindanao. So there, I spent 10 years as a bishop before I was appointed as Archbishop to Cagayan de Oro. And there I was for another 14 years. I became the Archbishop of Cagayan de Oro. So during all this time, I think I felt really thankful for the graces also, and the opportunity to engage in the ministry of the church. And for me, that has been part of my calling, I think, to be with other people in those areas.
Well, Father, as a bishop, that's a big thing. It's a big deal that we have to take care of the flocks and the priest. Um, can you share a little bit about um, how do you take care of the people as a bishop, and how you deal with the priest in your ministry?
My first 10 years as a bishop was really in the prelature of Ipil, which was had been a Jesuit mission district. So in other words, it was still getting organized. And at the beginning of the Jesuit mission district, there were only about 9 parishes. But by the time I ended my term there were about 21 parishes. And there were still a number of Jesuit missionary priests working now with a growing number of native priests. So it was in that setting where there was a poor infrastructure. The roads were very poor, and the churches were still mostly made of wooden materials. But it was a mission area, and I think that also made me realize the need for God's presence among the Christian communities there. One particular situation we had was really the tension between minority Muslim community and the majority Christian community, but there were sometimes outbreaks of violence. But on the whole, the Muslim community were also peaceful. What was the problem was maybe other extremist groups that came from the nearby islands of Basilan and Holo, because the shoreline of Zamboanga Sibugay province, where the village of Ipil was located, was really extensive, and you can have groups coming in from any place.
Mm.
So those are the first 10 years, and then the next 14 years in Cagayan de Oro, which is a bit more developed area. I had also had to take care of maybe about 100 diocesan priests in 70 parishes. So it was maybe 3 times more the size of the prelature of Ipil. But there again, it was good to see how different Christian communities, about 1 million Christians in that area, were also uh, in need for the sacraments, like regular masses, confessions, the sacraments of baptism and marriage, and also the ministries. We started the ministries for social action, for interfaith dialogue, for sectors like migrant workers, prisoners, also for women in special cases, and for children, orphanages. So for me, it was quite a fulfilling ministry to see how to encourage many of these ministries to continue in being open to the needs of people around them.
Well, Father, you mentioned about the Muslim and the Christians, and there is like exists the interfaith dialogue. So how do you deal with it? Like um, to become a mediator for the Muslims and the Christians in order for them to freely manifest their faith and practice their faith in the society.
Well, during that period, around 1969, when I started as the Bishop of April and onwards, we also had the formation of what we call the Bishops Ulama Forum. Later on, it was called the Bishops Ulama Conference, which was really a grouping of the Mindanao Catholic bishops. There are 21 dioceses and prelatures in Mindanao at that time, and also Muslim ulama, the religious heads of the Muslim communities. So we would come together in regular dialogue every 3 months, later on every 6 months, to discuss common issues. And every time there was an outbreak of violence or communal hostilities, this Bishops Ulama Conference would come out with a joint statement signed by both Christian and Muslim leaders condemning the violence. And I think that had a moderating effect on many of our communities. And also during that time, the BUC also sponsored this yearly Mindanao Week of Peace every last Thursday of the November up to the first Wednesday of December, which was really also including the first Sunday of Advent for Catholics. So during that period, we encouraged local communities throughout Mindanao to also have their own observance for a Mindanao Week of Peace. And again, in processions or marches, we showed that both Christians and Muslims could come together, and that the majority of Christians and Muslims were really opting for peace, not for violence. And I think that set the grounds also for the eventual formation in 2019 of what we call the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region for Muslim Mindanao, which was really a form of a peace agreement between the government and the Muslim militant groups, that they will have their own autonomous government within the state of the Philippines. And I think that has radically diminished the outbreak of violence in Mindanao. So at this stage, the challenge now is to help this Muslim area to develop faster and also to provide for the basic needs of their communities.
Well, Father, maybe I go back a little to your formation as a Jesuit. So as a Jesuit, we have our own formations, have our own um, way of proceedings, and then you become a bishop, a diocesan, to serve the diocese in Cagayan de Oro. So how do you see the formation of the Jesuits helps you in in as a bishop in the diocese who takes care for the diocesan priest? How do you find the formation, the Jesuit that helps you?
Well, for one thing, during the novitiate period, for instance, we have this 1 month we call trials. And that was my first experience. I had a trial of 1 month in Cadigilan in the central part of Bukidnon. Also 1 month trial in Culion leper colony. And I think those field trials also opened my eyes to the needs of actual rural poor communities. And that prepared me for my own experience as a bishop in the prelature of Ipil and later on also in Cagayan. Aside from that, I think our formation as Jesuits in the spiritual exercises and also in continued prayer, even in the midst of activities, was a help for me that in periodic periods, there should always be time for some reflection and some prayer for continuing your own ministry. And I think, well, yes, dealing with the diocesan priests is a bit different from maybe fellow Jesuits because the diocesan priests are a bit more autonomous or independent. They do not have a vow of poverty, but they do live simple lives too. But in a sense, you also have to encourage them in terms of their own particular assignments. It's not just a question of obedience right away, but to try to also understand the situation of each of the parish priests. A number of them, for instance, have ailing parents or mothers, so they had to take care of that. Or a number were also sick and need health maintenance. So we tried to provide for that in terms of social security also. And that was one of the first steps I did when I came into Ipil and Cagayan de Oro, to have standardized living allowances for all the diocesan priests, so that regardless of whether you're assigned to a better off parish or a poor parish, you have the same standard living allowance for all the priests. And I think that also helped them in terms of their fellowship and sense of being together in solidarity in one diocese.
Since you touched a bit about the vows, um, vow of poverty, obedience, and chastity. So, how do you find the meaning in the vows? Now, from the beginning, now we say it, now as a bishop, as emeritus, how do you find the meaning of the vows in your life, Father?
Well, I think the vows are always a constant reminder that as consecrated persons, we are called to this way of life. And there are difficulties. In other words, sometimes there are also temptations and also attractions for using more funds or having a better, more intimate relationship with some people. And sometimes in terms of obedience also, it's difficult to understand the sometimes suggestions of some superiors. But in general, I think that's part of the journey or the walking together that we are asked to follow. For me as administrator or bishop, I was more from the other end, that I'm the one trying to give assignments and the others have to try to, you have to explain to them the meaning of the assignment. And sometimes you have to remove one priest from another parish to another. So I have to also listen to them carefully to be able first to see how we can make arrangements for any future assignment.
Well, Father, as a Jesuit, what becomes your strength to help you um, to like life as a Jesuit? No, what is your strength, Father?
I think communication skills are important, and I had to learn the language, the local language, Bisaya, because my own language is really Ilonggo, which is a variant of Bisaya. But also, even in preparing for homilies, oftentimes you have to really spend some time to prepare for it. But I think these communication skills that in Jesuit formation we're also trying to undertake is really a big help later on. And the facility to write homilies, to write pastoral letters would also be a big help later on. So the form of maybe self-discipline there in trying to collect your thoughts together and put them in clarity before others has been a big help. Looking back now at my own formation. Yeah.
Well, Bishop, this is a wonderful experience. No, I think this is the end of our conversation. What do you want to say to to the Jesuits, to the young Jesuit, or especially to the young men and women who considering the vocation um, in your life? No, you experience consolation a lot, experience how Jesuit formed you in your life, and as a Jesuit, as a priest, and as a bishop. So, what do you want to say to young people who are considering the vocation?
Well, I think first, don't aspire to become a bishop because that's not really God's plan for a Jesuit. But whenever there's a calling for that, why not be open to it also? But on the other hand, really, I think for many Jesuits I know, it's really they're staying with their own assignment, doing what they're asked to do. That has also been an inspiration for me. In the same way that I think for the diocesan priests, right now we have a period of reshuffling. Priests after 6 years are moved to another area, another parish, and I admire their indifference, their availability also to go to other places after a long period of being acquainted in one particular parish. So I think that's for Jesuits especially. I think that's part of the availability and mobility that also is asked of the society. And I hope that our scholastic information also have that openness to go wherever the ministry is in need for your services and always to be open to the needs of people around you.
So, thank you very much for your wonderful experience, your knowledge, and your wisdom that has shared with me in this channel. Uh, it helps me and people to know you more better, and especially through your experience, and help us to know more Jesus, who calls us. So, thank you very much, Father, for your time and your experience, and continue to pray for
My
each other.
pleasure, and thank you also. Yes. You know, yeah.